One more person who tested positive for COVID-19 in Saskatchewan has died. It was a person in the 80-plus age group in the Saskatoon zone. There are 55 new cases to report in the province, including 4 in the northwest, none of which are in the immediate Lloydminster area. 95 people are in hospital, with 10 in the northwest. 774 cases are active province-wide, with 111 active in the northwest. There are 24 active cases in the immediate Lloydminster area. More than 903,000 vaccine doses have been administered, with over 57,000 doses in our zone. It's time now for this week's retrospect. Here's Blake Nath.
This week in retrospect. Back in '91, NewsHour recruits a local adolescent to engage in a top-secret undercover operation.
12-year-old Christy Warder is a junior high school student in Lloydminster. She's a non-smoker and legally 4 years too young to smoke. We recruited Christy to visit local retailers and attempt to purchase cigarettes. On our first stop, Christy was told that she was too young to buy cigarettes and was turned away. In fact, all 6 stores we visited today refused to sell to her.
Well, I went in there and they asked me if I was old enough, and I said no, and then they asked me if I had any ID, and I said no, and I sort of left. Most of them just said I wasn't old enough, and they said I was under 16 and I couldn't buy any.
In all 6 stores we visited today, the sign regarding under 16 tobacco sales was prominently displayed and obviously enforced. Safeway's manager says their policy has been in effect for quite a while.
I've been with the company for 31 years, and even my in-store policies, we never did sell cigarettes to minors. And we're the Alberta division right now, and corporate policy is those cigarettes sold to 16 and under.
And in '96, students of the Advanced Computers class at Lloydminster Comprehensive High School show off their final film projects.
From the 36 chambers.
The students in this advanced computers class at the Lloydminster Comprehensive High School put together 30-second vignettes as a finale to their year's work. The projects were then marked by 3 representatives from the television industry.
We couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe the kind of work that these kids were doing just on computers here at the high school. It was some fantastic pieces. We were quite impressed with. There was one in particular that we, all 3 of us thought could air as a commercial on any station in the country right now.
The commercial for Apple Computers took grade 12 student Steve Villette about 3 days to create.
And that's all for this week in retrospect.
Retrospect this week is brought to you by Webb's-Ford. Worth your while to drive the extra mile. Webb's-Ford in Vermilion.
Now our Connor Chan will take a first look at your evening forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Looking at our temperatures right now, we had a very, very warm and humid day. That could be said for most of Alberta. As most of Alberta, of course, they did see lots of thunderstorms overnight, including in Edmonton, and that rain's going to make its way over to us fairly soon into tomorrow as well as overnight tonight. But 32 degrees, some as even hot, potentially as 37 throughout some parts of the day. But the wind is also pretty heavy coming in from the south at 35 kilometers an hour. As we take a look at other temperatures in the area, pretty same story here. Lots of 30-degree marks in Vermilion, Wainwright, and Provost as well. Vegreville and Edmonton just shy of that 30-degree mark, but with a humidex, it could be up a little bit higher. Looking up to North Battleford, 32 in Maidstone as well as in North Battleford, then 32 in Meadow Lake and 31 in Green Lake currently. This is a look at the satellite radar map right now. Most of that activity, as I mentioned, is mostly in the Alberta area, hovering around there, and of course, it is going to make its way over to us in the next coming hours or so into overnight tonight, where we are going to see lots of thunderstorms potentially, and we're in the severe warning right now, so we could see lots of heavy rain tomorrow, possibly large sizes of hail as well. well, so be cautious of that when you are going out for tomorrow. Taking a look at the school day forecast, we are going to see lots of cloud coverage throughout the day mostly, and that rain as well starting to kick in around that early morning, afternoon time as well. Recess 27 degrees, lunchtime 30 degrees, and then by the time around we hit that 3:30, 4 o'clock mark, we should have some clear skies. Still pretty high though with 35 degrees, so that heat's going to continue on for the next little bit here until probably tomorrow or Wednesday and Thursday, as we are expected to cool down. 19 overnight in North Battleford with 34 in the daytime high tomorrow. 18 overnight in Cold Lake with those thunder showers continuing into tomorrow at 33. And then for us overnight, we will see it pretty clear for the most part, but then tomorrow we are going to see that 34-degree mark with those thunderstorms in place there. Looking at Wednesday, we are going to cool down, as I mentioned there, and it's going to drop pretty quickly here on Thursday, as we are going to have that high of 14 degrees, and once again, some more showers coming our way. That's a look at your weather for now. We'll have more primetime local news after the break.
One team has cashed their ticket to the semifinals of the NBA playoffs. Now 3 other teams are looking to join. Evan Kenny joined myself in breaking down the newest from the hardwood. I'm joined here now with Evan Kenny, and today we are talking NBA playoffs, currently in the second round, but one team has just clinched their spot in the conference finals, and that is the Phoenix Suns, who, even though this year they were the 2nd seed, they were kind of looked at as the underdogs.
Yeah, 100%, Jasmine. I mean, from the very beginning of the season, I think it's safe to say a lot of people looked at them as the underdog. I mean, we saw it in last year's NBA playoff bubble. They went 8-0. Unfortunately, didn't qualify for playoffs, but that really kickstarted the success that we're seeing from that team now. I mean, in the regular season this past year, they were 1 win off of being the #1 team in the entire NBA, yet you still go into a first-round playoff matchup against LeBron James and the LA Lakers, and yes, they were looked at as the underdog, but now, we've seen they've been rolling. Their offense is really clicking. Guys like DeAndre Ayton, who might not have been contributing as much in past years, are really starting to catch up. And then, I mean, Jasmine, what else can you say? Chris Paul and Devin Booker have been absolutely insane. I mean, in that final game versus Denver in the sweep there, Devin Booker dropped 34 while Chris Paul dropped 37. I mean, when you need your stars to be stars, these guys are really, fulfilling that role there.
And this was the first time the Phoenix Suns have reached the conference finals since 2010, and they haven't actually reached the NBA finals since the 90s, so it'll be a bit different matchup that we will see, but this game was kind of met with some controversy as Nikola Jokic was actually ejected for a flagrant 2 foul with 4 minutes to go in the 3rd quarter. Now, a lot of people are wondering, will the outcome have changed if Nikola Jokic hadn't been ejected? So there is some controversy surrounding that.
Jasmine, I understand where that's coming from. I don't know if the outcome necessarily would have changed. They were down by a handful of points there, and it seemed like Phoenix was really starting to roll there. But, just looking at it from Jokic's side, the Joker there, it did not seem like an intentional or a dirty play there. He was trying to fire his team up, get a big steal, or maybe even draw a hard foul, but nothing, intentionally looking to hurt, the player there on the Suns. So, I mean, it's more of just a tough scenario. Would it have changed the game? I don't think so, but you still, you don't love to see that, in this final game there.
And another thing that might have played a difference into the Denver Nuggets playoff run was the injury of Jamal Murray, which has actually led to a lot of teams. They have seen injuries throughout this playoffs, including Kyrie Irving, James Harden, just to name a few. So this playoff run really shows that your team needs to have depth in order to really make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%, Jasmine. I mean, you already mentioned it. James Harden there was hurt in Game 1 where the Nets played Milwaukee there. Kyrie Irving leaves in Game 4 there. So, Kevin Durant is now taking a huge load on his shoulders. But, not just when you look at the Brooklyn Nets. Other teams are also facing these injuries. Danny Green, a great 3-and-D guy for the Philadelphia 76ers there, is now injured. Donovan Mitchell, all-star for the Utah Jazz, will be missing, possibly a couple of games here. And Mike Conley, another guy for the Utah Jazz, he missed Game 3 there, and they ended up losing it to the Clippers. So injuries obviously play a huge role. It could be a make or break for any team here. But Jasmine, this really will show where the depth, where the bench for different teams stands at. I mean, you look at championship teams in the past. LA Lakers last year, they had a guy like Alex Caruso, who was huge coming off the bench there. Toronto Raptors a couple years before that, obviously they had the bench mob. So, the recipe for success is having depth and having a good bench. Now we'll really see from some of these top teams if they have that.
And I think this NBA playoffs, like you said, has really shown the depth of certain teams, and that is kind of transitioning into the next generation of the NBA and what it might look like. We're seeing teams like the Hawks making the second round, where we haven't really seen them be good in a few years. The Jazz have been doing great, but now they're really starting to get higher, as well as the Knicks, which we know have all not been that great throughout the past few years. So it's nice for them to finally make the playoffs and maybe even be a contender in the coming years. And another one of those teams is the Hawks, where we're seeing star player Trae Young really flourish.
Yeah, Trae Young has really come out, into his own. He's solidified himself as one of the elite players in the NBA. Throughout these playoffs, he's averaging 28.8 points per game and 9.8 assists per game. These are almost career high totals for him, and this is his first playoff run. I mean, not only is he having this individual success, but obviously, Jasmine, he's in the second round. He had a hard-fought battle there with the New York Knicks and was able to win that one. So, not only is he having individual success, but just the play for himself is making the team around him better. We could bring up some different guys too, Luka Doncic, a handful of other guys, Ja Morant, who while they've had individual success, their teams haven't done as well. But for Trae Young, him being excellent has pushed his team to excellence.
And this playoff run will certainly have a different outcome that we've seen in the past few years, such as LeBron James and Steph Curry. Neither of those players are in the finals since 2010, which, if you think about it, that's a pretty long time and a pretty successful run for both of those players. But we are really seeing the NBA changing, as well as maybe our classic teams such as the Lakers and Warriors and Celtics and so on haven't really been the star teams. So it'll be nice to see a new champion this year. But thank you so much for your time, Evan.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine, and you're right. It should be exciting moving forward.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. As I mentioned earlier, we are still in that heat warning, and that upper ridge of heat is going to make it very warm for at least the next day or two, as we are still seeing temperatures in the 30-degree mark. As we look to Alberta, we see 26 degrees in Edmonton, 27 in Edson, Red Deer, and Whitecourt, 23 in Rocky Mountain House. Going over into Saskatchewan, also very warm in parts of southern Alberta and Saskatchewan today, as they went into the mid-30s today, and I'll show that in just a second here. But 32 in North Battleford, Saskatoon, and Meadow Lake right now, with 31 in Prince Albert. Taking a look up north is still pretty mild for the most part, with 24 degrees in those mid-20s to high 20s, 24 in La Loche and Buffalo Narrows, with 26 in La Ronge and in Flin Flon, and then Walson Lake, one of the cooler spots. It's 16 degrees and 30 all the way up north in Uranium City. Going into Slave Lake, 22 degrees right now in northern Alberta, 26 for Peace River high level, and then 29 in Fort McMurray. Take a look now into those southern Albertas. I did mention those mid to high 30s as we look at 35 degrees in Lethbridge and 37 in Medicine Hat. Those areas could also see some thunderstorm possibilities building up for today and tomorrow as well. And then 30 degrees in Calgary with 33 in Coronation as well. Looking over to southern Saskatchewan, 32 in Swift Current with 33 in Kindersley, and then Regina and Moose Jaw just shy of 30 degrees at 29 and 28 in both Estevan and in Yorkton. And most of the country also saw some warm temperatures as well. Winnipeg saw 25 degrees currently, and that's what they're sitting at with a lot of sunshine right now. Toronto sitting at 22. A little bit cooler in the Maritimes and the Atlantic provinces. We see St. John's at 10 degrees and Halifax at 14 and 15 in Quebec City. Going into Vancouver, still seeing lots of that cloud coverage and carrying over from Alberta there, and Alberta seeing that as well, with Edmonton at that 26-degree mark, 23 all the way up in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, and then 20 degrees up in Whitehorse in the Yukon. Now, looking into tomorrow, we could see some severe thunderstorm possibilities in the mix here, as we could see lots of heavy rain as well as very large hail size as well as those winds also continuing to pick up, as we are going to see lots of low pressure coming in from Alberta, making its way into Saskatchewan, which is going to cause a lot of that rain that we're going to see tomorrow. So 33 in Vermilion and Wainwright for tomorrow, as well as 34 is our expected high for us here in Lloydminster, as well as in Marwayne, Maidstone, Macklin, and Provost. 33 up in Bonnyville and Cold Lake for tomorrow. 34, we'll also see that number in North Battleford as well, and then we'll see 35 for Meadow Lake and Green Lake tomorrow, while 34 in Isle La Crosse. We'll still be in those mid to high 30s, and we could still be in that heat warning for the next day or so. And looking ahead to that next 7 days, those thunderstorms, as I mentioned, on that Tuesday and then going into Wednesday, we're going to cool off pretty significantly here heading into midweek. So 21 degrees on Wednesday, where we will see a break from the rain, and then we'll welcome it back on Thursday with that high of 14 degrees, 19 degrees on Friday with that same cloud coverage hovering over us and continuing on. 22 degrees on Saturday with more showers expected, as well as we'll see that 22-degree mark on Sunday, and then clearing up a little bit on Monday when we get to that high of 25 degrees. Of course, we've been a little bit above our average lows, which is 8, which is now we're seeing around that 20 and 19 degrees. But we'll get back to normal around that midweek. That's a look at your 7-day forecast. We'll have more primetime local news coming up after the break.
Joining me today for Primetime Local News is Tess Wack with Startup Lloydminster. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I wanted to start off by asking, what's all planned for Pride Month for Startup?
So we have a lunch and learn on June 16th, virtually via Zoom, about being an ally in the workplace. So we've partnered with the LGBTQ plus Society of Lloydminster. So they're going to come in and help us facilitate this one. So we're really looking forward to it.
Would you be able to expand what's all involved in this lunch and learn event?
So we have lunch and learns all the time, and so this is just another one. This is one of our June editions. So all you need to do to participate is register. You'll get the Zoom link to hop onto Zoom, and then there will be the session. And so I'm not fully sure what the plan is because with our partners, they're going to take the lead on it. So, but typically they'll do a bit of a presentation, chat a bit, and then there's always time for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, or if you have questions leading up and want some more information, please reach out. We'll be happy to connect you to the answers.
Now, is this the first year that Startup Lloydminster has partnered up with the LGBTQ Society to do this lunch and learn event?
Yeah, this is the first time we've partnered with them, so we're very excited about it, excited about the session. Yeah, so we're looking forward to it this Wednesday.
If the Lunch and Learn event is successful this year, will Startup Lloydminster be planning to do this annually for Pride Month?
Yeah, definitely. We're always looking at new programming, new ideas, new initiatives. And so if this is a big success, I think that we could look to hopefully do something next year, or maybe even expand it. Who knows?
How has support from residents been so far for this Lunch and Learn event for registrations?
Yeah, we've had lots of registrants, which is great to see. And the beautiful thing, because it's on Zoom, there's no limit. So we can have as many as we'd like.
If it wasn't for COVID-19, and since you have to do this event over Zoom, what did Startup do differently in previous years for their Lunch and Learn events?
So pre-pandemic, we were able to have our lunch and learns in our co-working space. And so people could come in person. We'd be able to have some more time for networking and different things like that. And they could see the space, but obviously during our current times, but hopefully soon that will be changing and we can get back to in person again. So.
Well, hopefully next year you'll all be able to get together instead of doing it over Zoom. Is there anything else you'd like to add that Startup Lloydminster has planned for the summer?
Through the summer, yes, we're working on a few little programs and initiatives. There's one that's launching this week about our small business heroes, so watch for that. We're very excited about that initiative as well. We are a part of the Regional Innovation Network, and through that, there's an innovation masterclass. So it's targeted for youth if they have entrepreneurs ages 16 and plus, and it's really just to introduce innovative thinking in a group kind of coaching learning session. So if you're interested in something like that, please reach out and we can get you connected.
With vaccinations now and new restrictions, is there any plans for Startup Lloydminster that have now changed back to normal?
Yeah, so currently our co-working space is open. We just do it by appointment so we can make sure that we've got proper capacity and everything. So currently that's what we're doing, but as we're looking forward to when we can all just kind of come back in and come and go and really be a great meeting place for entrepreneurs in our community.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, Tess, about the Lunch and Learn event and anything else that's planned for the summer?
Yeah, watch for more. We'll have lots coming up in the next little bit. We're really looking for looking forward to some strong programming in the fall, maybe even late summer. So we'll see how everything plays out. But we've got some things coming up, just working on some final details. So watch for those announcements. But as I said too, if you are interested in that innovation masterclass, it's a great opportunity for youth entrepreneurs in our region. So if you have any questions, please reach out and we can support and get you connected.
Thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very pleased to be joined with Canadian country band James Barker Band. We're talking about your new single, Overall Over Again, and after having a listen to it, it does give off a great melody with those classic country vibes that we're all pretty familiar with. So for our viewers, share with us the origins of the song.
I mean, this one definitely was one of those songs that was built, from a melodic standpoint first. They always say, like, what comes first, lyric or melody? And had this idea for Overall Over Again, which I was like, it'd be so cool to do that thing where it's like that relationship you keep falling back into, even though you shouldn't. That's just such like a core country music idea of that thing of like, this is going to hurt like heck in the morning, but it's going to be really good right now. And the thing that makes it kind of lighthearted is that it is lighthearted in the lyrical sense, where it's like, I know it's going to be bad, but this is going to be good. It's not too dark and depressing, and the music kind of helps reinforce that and underline that. And that was it. And I don't know, it just feels so good to play. It's one of those things that definitely leans on the melody in a way that you even hear like a lot of the Beatles songs do, where it's like that carries it. It's as much a part of the story as the lyric is.
Now, you guys also just recently got a U.S. record deal with Sony Music Nashville and Villa 40. So talk about what that means for you guys, because I know to a lot of Canadian country artists, that's a pretty big deal. So just share with us your reaction when you found out you got it.
Yeah, it's we've kind of been saying the U.S. record deal, as far as bands or artists go, it's kind of like the holy grail. It's the thing that everybody talks about, everybody wants their whole life. You're like, if I could just get signed to a big American record deal, it's like we're signed to Sony Nashville. I mean, it doesn't really get much bigger than that for country music. And it was just such a weird time to sign a record deal. I mean, literally, we were stuck at home for a year and a half and somehow managed to sign a deal in it. And just a crazy time to do it, but almost kind of the perfect time, because if we didn't have that, it would have seemed so much more grim. But we had kind of this light at the end of the tunnel where it's like, well, we haven't been able to play shows for a year and a half, but at least we've got this thing going on. And so it feels good to finally have that done, and then things finally be opening up kind of at the same time.
Now, with all that time being home, there's been lots of Zooms for many musicians. Talk about that from a band perspective and the way that you guys have been able to keep that band chemistry and that band dynamic while being apart with COVID.
Yeah, we definitely leaned heavy on the Zoom thing. Out of the gate, it was one of those things where, I mean, you're constantly battling with the technology, not being able to do like a live stream from different places and all of that. But with the Zoom, it's crazy. You can literally just be like, hey, does everyone want to jump on and like write today? Or do you guys want to jump on? And we did a handful of like Zoom, like meet and greet things with fans and stuff. And they're actually like, obviously it's great to be able to go back and play normal shows and do normal meet and greets. But there is something special about how interactive doing things online is, how face-to-face it is. You would never really get an interaction like that. Like when you do a live stream, someone can put in a request in the comments or say that was awesome or blah, 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 or, I met you guys at so-and-so show. And if you were just playing a live show, you'd never get that kind of one-on-one interaction. And so it's kind of something to be grateful for, because nothing would have ever forced us to do that other than like a pandemic. And so it's honestly one of those things where we're probably going to be doing some form of live stream or live meet and greets now for the rest of our careers, because it is so unique. It is such a cool experience.
And I think it also like shifted and allowed us to work on our productivity, because you're productive in different ways, where it's like, hey, I've got some time. So it's like, what can I focus on, get better at? And also having this time being able to kind of allot it in different ways, rather than a lot of the times, obviously we're on the road in the past or doing shows where it's kind of organized chaos. I feel like overall, all of us, this pandemic, definitely productivity wise and like moving our lives forward wise, we're able to do that really, really well.
And we spent every day together for the last like 6 years. Yeah. So if anything, the silver lining is we needed a break. So now we bought a couple more years before we inevitably kill each other until we break up. But.
Aside from the new single, what else can we expect from James Barker Band? Any new music? Any live shows coming up soon? What's the latest on that front?
Well, I mean, we've got so many songs, and so our game plan right now is obviously released all over again, and let that do what it's going to do, and then start talking about releasing an EP or an album or whatever it may be in the near future. And on the live show front, I mean, we do have shows booked kind of for late summer and into the fall, kind of all over North America. For Canada, it's just one of those things where it's like we've got our fingers crossed. There's obviously been a lot of like cancels and postponed dates and stuff like that. And whenever it opens back up, we are going to be hitting the road in a big way. Hopefully, we'll be playing every day straight for a year. We just finished 2 straight weeks of rehearsal, so we're ready to go. We're fired up. We got to play 2 shows in Kentucky this past weekend, and it was almost just a tease because it's like, let's do 25 more of those. So.
Well, guys, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us. The new single, Overall Over Again, is out now on all major music platforms to have a listen. Guys, thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on Primetime Local News. Have a great night.